After a wet spring, it can be a trap to believe there is adequate soil moisture available for pasture production, and irrigation plans can often be overlooked.
So I'm James Hills. I work for the Tasmanian Institute of Agriculture as a research fellow, and I lead the project, the Smart Irrigation for Profit project, around pivots and pressurised irrigation for dairy pastures. Yeah, well, the season that we had this last year was very challenging because it was very dry. We came off a very dry winter, so we didn't get our typical rainfall during winter. The spring rainfalls were very low, and people were starting to irrigate very early, so September, October as opposed to November or later. So they were coming in early, and what we found with a lot of farmers that just had on-farm dam storage, they were running out of water late December, early January. And that was something they probably weren't so used to. So very low rainfall right through the season, right through till autumn really. And so only those farmers that were on the irrigation schemes actually had enough water to irrigate right through. The scheduling, I think, is a real issue, and as a result of that, we saw that there was inadequate pasture growth rates on virtually all of our sites in this last year. So if you've got a situation where you're only growing, say, 40 kilos of dry matter per hectare per day as an average, and you should have been doing, say, 60 or more, then you're losing, say, 20 kilos of dry matter per hectare per day. And if you've got a 50 or 100 hectare pivot, you multiply that out over a few months, you're looking at tens of thousands of dollars in opportunity costs where you have to bring feed in to replace what you should have been growing. And we certainly saw that on a number of our sites. One site in particular, they even applied what would be considered to be a reasonable amount of water, so over 6 megalitres of water in the irrigation season per hectare, and yet they were still only having a pasture growth rate of around 40 kilos of dry matter on average. And a lot of that was due to the fact from the data that we collected that we could see that they just weren't refilling their profile adequately, so they were putting water in, bringing it up slightly. It was going down below the refill point again, so it was stressing out the system, and that's what we would probably refer to as a green drought. So tips for farmers around what they need to do, well, I think they need to measure so that they can understand what's happening, so they need to get a measure of their pasture growth and link that with how much water is going on to those sites. But getting an understanding of how much irrigation is needed and what their irrigation system is capable of doing, so their system capacity, I think is really crucial.
If water is limited, plan ahead for the irrigation season to reduce the risk of running out of water. Measure water use and pasture production. Use soil moisture monitoring to ensure the plant is not stressed.
So we've really got to stop and think about what is the system, what is the capacity, how often do I need to be watering to make sure that I don't end up going into a stress situation with my pasture. I think some of those things are really key.
James Hills, a researcher overseeing 5 irrigation trials in Tasmania with the Tasmanian Institute of Agriculture, explained that pasture production in tonnes per dry matter per hectare reduces as the average soil moisture deficit increases. Experiences last season in Tasmania showed that despite some rainfall and irrigation, soil moisture levels progressively decreased over the season. He emphasised the importance of monitoring soil moisture deficit throughout the season and to be aware that rainfall may not delay irrigation for as long as you might think. For example, a 117 hectare pivot can lose 210 tonnes of dry matter as a result of not maintaining soil moisture. This can cost $42,000 if the lost dry matter has to be replaced by fodder at $200 per tonne. James reminded participants that pasture needs water to grow, and ryegrass has shallow roots, 90% are in the top 30 centimetres. Regular watering is required. Readily available water in the southeast can be quite low, 6mm at Mount Shank, 7.5mm at Allendale East and 13.5mm at 8 Mile Creek. ETO over summer months is usually between 7 to 8.5 mils per day, but can be significantly higher. Irrigation interval without rain to achieve optimum growth can be 1 to 3 days. And poor watering costs money. James also stressed the value of getting your irrigation start date right. Using historic data from Richard Rawnsley and Mark Freeman that modelled delaying irrigation startup by 7, 14, 21 and 28 days, James explained that the pasture utilisation was found to reduce steadily with each day of delay. At 5 days delay, pasture utilised is reduced by 525 kilos of dry matter per hectare, and at 28 days, 2,940 kilograms of dry matter per hectare. For each day delay, approximately 5 tonne is lost, and over a 50 hectare pivot at $200 per tonne, this is $1,000 per day. Or, if equating that to milk, 5 tonnes of dry matter to 5,000 litres of milk at 33 cents per litre is $1,600.
You can find out more on this story or any other profitable dairying project at www.dairyclimatetoolkit.com.au.